Look, as Liz has indicated, I'm a town planner, and already there's been a lot said about town planners and the significance of prime agricultural land. Also done a lot of work over the years in local government. In fact, most of my clients are consultant, 25 years, something like that, and mostly local government. I've been, to kind of get to the point, I've been actively involved as a town planner, local government person with active living, you might say another side of the coin here, for probably 6 or 7 years now. In fact, I could even stretch that a bit and say that for that time I've been involved in what I'm happy to call the healthy planning movement. You know, how did town planning ever lose sight, he says, in passing, of that fundamental principle of health? Many of you in the audience would know the genesis of land use planning was in health, and at last I think the pendulum may have swung back a bit. And town planners are taking an active role. It started for me with an association with Susan Thompson, and many of you in the room will know Susan Thompson, Associate Professor at UNSW in the Healthy Built Environments Program. Got a few acronyms for you. Here's the first one, HBEP. Again, some of you may know this, HBEP, the Healthy Built Environments Program, funded by New South Wales Health. And you've got to give it to Susan Thompson and co for really pushing this. What happened was Susan Thompson approached me, this is at 6 or 7 years ago, and said, look, can you come along to our healthy planning course and talk about how we can use the town planning system to improve health? What a challenge. As a statutory planner, and if you're after a label for my background, it's statutory planning, you know, the nuts and bolts of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act currently being reviewed, he says. And that was quite a challenge for me. You know, how can we use that system, think zoning, etc., and the like, and development applications. It's continued, my association with Susan Thompson, this year, again, as a part of the HBEP, Healthy Built Environments Program. We're doing a travelling show around the state. A whole day. There's one coming up in the CBD here. It's full, unfortunately, in a couple of weeks. But we've been to 7 locations around the state pushing healthy planning, and that certainly includes healthy eating. That association with HBEP in some respects explains why I'm here. But an important thing for me was that work with Susan Thompson in turn led to a long association with the Premier's Council for Active Living. That's PCAL, PCAL for those of you who aren't familiar with PCAL, Active Living, but also with the Heart Foundation. It's again 5 or so years as the, if you like, statutory planner on the team. We've produced a few documents. Once again, some of you may be familiar with some of these. I'd encourage you to go to the PCAL site, PCAL. There it is, where you'll find this kind of stuff. We've produced a document called Supportive Environments for Active Living, which I continue. That was probably the first, writing it all down, that was probably the first cab off the rank, really. Development and Active Living, another publication. And to start to really get to the point, and in particular, in 2009, under the PCAL banner, and with a focus on active living, he says, we turned to the local government integrated planning and reporting framework. Now, I know that most of you in the audience, not everybody, is from local government. Certainly want to say a few words about the integrated planning and reporting framework. Quite a bold move, I think, and I'll say that in a minute. But how can we utilise the local government integrated planning and reporting framework to promote active living? That was the brief. It's a few years back now. It was when the first group of councils were doing the IPR business. Look, on the table up the front, and I don't know whether you actually picked it up, is this cute little picture. If you've got that, particularly for those of you who aren't familiar with the Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, this is Mark II from the Division of Local Government. It certainly is the central theme, if you like, or the central point of my talk. You'll see the flow chart. It's a bubble diagram, I like to refer to it as. If you've got it there, let me just say a few words about it, and I'll try and animate this a bit. Something that's not on the diagram that I think is really important is that councils must have a community engagement strategy, and this is very important to set the pace, to ask local residents, locals generally and other stakeholders, state agencies about the future. So we're game enough, we're bold enough to think 20 years, in some cases 30 years, and the top of the tree falling out of the community engagement strategy is what's called the Community Strategic Plan. And once again, most of you would have heard of the Community Strategic Plan, but perhaps not everybody. Community driven, not, community directed. It's participation, not consultation. And as a key element of, this is in the law, as a key element of the framework, it's that Community Strategic Plan up here that sets the pace. In fact, with well-crafted objectives, it really feeds down through to the nuts and bolts of local government activities. If you follow the diagram down, you'll see the Community Strategic Plan here and the stakeholders up the top. That intermediate level, kind of in some respects take a little bit of a credit for that, because in the original diagram we didn't have that row of what I will call other strategic plans. It's a big gap between the Community Strategic Plan, goals and objectives, 30 pages, pictures, and the 4-year delivery program here. Big gap, and that gap's been filled in this latest diagram, and I'm really pleased. And you look at, if you have a squiz there at the types of strategic plans, it's a shame that one of them doesn't say health plan, let alone, healthy food plan or healthy eating plan. But that's that kind of intermediate level where we can really move from the broad brush goals, etc., through to specifics. Call it action plan if you like, which in turn, if you follow the diagram down, feeds the 4-year delivery program, the old management plan, and the 1 year, what are we going to do this year? It's quite a bold attempt by the state government over the last, 6 or so years, to put this kind of frame around council's activities. I believe it's going to survive and be boosted by the various reviews of local government going on now. Is it God's gift? That kind of, at least we can put our mind to it, warts and all. Maybe life ain't like that, but here's a bold attempt by the state government to produce this kind of logical framework. A couple of things I haven't mentioned, important things. Over here, a resourcing strategy, where councils have to put their mind to long-term financial planning, where we're going to get the dollars for this. Has to put their mind to workforce plan. Do we need staff for these things? And asset management plan. Let's not sell the family farm, kind of phrase, without thinking about it. And many a council is doing that. But here's a chance for us, if we can engage in this framework, to build things into it. So, that's it. That's important. That's really what I'm here to talk about. Just about all councils now have it. So in 2010, God, and that's already 3+ years ago, PCAL said, okay, how can we build active living into this? How can we attempt to have active living addressed in the Community Strategic Plan without leading the public? Just about every Community Strategic Plan speaks of health. Going down the line a bit, that gap, can we have a health plan that elaborates on that? What about the resourcing strategy? asset management. Streets, where most activity, that's assets, that's an asset. Parks and gardens. We came up with, excuse me, like a model. If you're serious about active living, here's some objectives that you can push in there, promote without leading the public. And here's some examples from best practice of what's going on at councils in terms of actual projects. That 4-year delivery plan, that 1-year operational plan. It was a great job from my angle. It ended up in a report, a kind of bland Word document, but also with a bit of a brochure about it. Active Living Integrated Planning and Reporting Resource for Councils. This is kind of up yonder. Please grab a copy if you can. It kind of works its way through the framework. The buzzword, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is cascade. You've got the community strategic plan, and then actually we cascade down through the resourcing strategy to actions, 4-year, 1-year actions. So once again, warts and all, a bold attempt to put some kind of frame around local government activity is something that I certainly support. Maybe the planning bit helps. Then along came, so far active living, along came the state election. Now, you'll remember that. And PCAL, the Premier's Council again for Active Living, maybe I should just mention in passing, the Premier's Council, imprimatur of the Premier. It's not a government agency, but all of the transport agencies and land use planning agencies come together under the imprimatur of the Premier, and that helps. That helps. Anyway, so along came the state election. PCAL was nervous that, it would be see you later, bye, but that didn't happen. So the Premier's Council for Active Living remains, and what's more, to really get to the point, the brief, PCAL's brief has been extended to cover healthy eating. So I'm finally relevant. And guess what? PCAL have said to me that we should work together and update this, not just the brochure, but the report, let's call it the resource. So active living and healthy eating. How can we build that into the normal, if I could put it that way, integrated planning and reporting framework? An important thing for me to say is that this project is just starting. It's not quite day one, but it's just starting. So far, what we've done is kind of scoped this, and I don't need to tell you, and it's been said already, and we're certainly going to hear it today, that there is so much good work going on in terms of healthy eating, in particular, healthy food, healthy eating, in particular at local government level. So I think when I think of that, it won't be reinventing the wheel with this project. It's not this huge project like some of them that we're going to hear about, some of the projects, that we're going to hear about have been. So we've been really brainstorming. It's not new for local government, and local government people will know that. But so far we've been brainstorming by stage in the food chain, if I could put it that way, from community education and the like, through production. And again, the bells are ringing in terms of prime agricultural land, processing. And again, I'm a town planner's hat, but beyond that, and distribution, and waste, and reuse. So I've been brainstorming a bit like that. And secondly, brainstorming by council principal activities. What do the town planners do? What about the engineers? Those of you who you might think, how can we grab them? Why the engineers? Well, the public domain, Parks and recreation, gardens, engineers. So it is early days. The task is to really push this. We've got a few case studies in mind, and some of them will be obvious to you. The Illawarra, I didn't mention that I'm also a South Coast resident, drove from Nowra this morning. And let's hear it for the South Coast. But also a lot of work going on the Northern Rivers, and we're going to have a bit of a squiz around Penrith, so it will be, feed us. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean kind of phrase like that, but give up. We need the information to try and give this a bit of a nudge. So look, I'd like you to keep your eye on the PCAL website, because it is early days for me and this project. We're going to keep you updated. It's really a December deadline, so it's not tomorrow. We're thinking about a dissemination strategy, or working on a dissemination strategy. Not much point, the best document in the world, if we don't think about how we're going to kind of get the word out and about. I reckon finalised early 2014. So that's just a bit of a taste, really. The words that I would use about today is, for me, is lots of listening. I'm not a familiar face here. Lots of listening for me. I'm really keen to learn about it, and certainly keen to have a chat as the day goes by.